Greetings, soul family. This is Amenti the Awakener, Amenti the Oracle, and I'm joining you live and direct today, wanting to just share some insight with you. Wherever you are in the world, I want to say hello and send you much love of the highest vibration, and thank you for joining me. If you are joining me live, please do let me know in the comments where you are joining me from. I'm definitely dedicating this particular live to our sacred sisters, to our sacred women. And I just wanted to have a conversation with you based on a session that I just had with a client. And I really want to talk about the divine feminine, us women, sacred women, and the wounds that we go through, especially with regards to rites of passage. So whether that means coming into puberty, coming into your femininity in terms of your womanhood, coming into motherhood, coming into marriage, and then going into menopause and elderhood. These are the different stages that we go through as divine feminines. But as you know, with the current state that we are in right now, we don't have those rites of passage. We don't have that support as we transition through those sacred stages. And so we're kind of figuring it out on our own, right? And so part of my works, especially as a divine reflection of the Divine Mother, is to help reinstate some of these sacred feminine practices, these understandings around rites of passage, and really support us in healing the wounds of the feminine. When we talk about the divine feminine rising, we're not talking about women now all of a sudden becoming, the lords of men. We're talking about the balance of energy with regards to masculine and feminine energy on the planet. We're talking about balancing the masculine and feminine energies within and without. And this is for all of us on this planet. And it's about awakening consciousness, right? Awakening our understanding around masculine and feminine energies. And so over the next couple of weeks, the stuff that I'm going to be talking about is going to be in alignment with relationships, masculine and feminine energy, and how we come into a space of oneness. But today I want to talk about some of the wounds of the divine feminine after having a conversation with this is not even a client. I would say we were having a clarity call to see whether we could work together. And the way in which my energy works, once we engage and have a conversation, the healing or some insight is going to come through. That's for the greatest good of all of us. And so today, when I was talking with this client, she had been going through relationship problems, and she is at the end of a relationship. And she was suffering. She was feeling like some of the wounds coming up from the relationship. And so when we looked into some of those wounds, the things that were coming up for her were shame and anxiety. And it was so bad that it was also manifesting in her body as sciatica. And for me, I am very much of the understanding that whenever we have a physical illness, it usually has a spiritual, mental, or emotional, or even ancestral root to it. And my job is to help us to get to that root so that we can clear that physical illness and bring balance to the body. So when I asked her to really tune into the emotion of shame that she was feeling and asked her where she was feeling it in her body, she was feeling it in her womb space. And so we started to have a dialogue to kind of look at, where did this shame come from? Where did she first begin to feel shame? And we regressed, and she went back to a memory of being a young girl, coming into her femininity, coming into her feminine energy. So, when we are young girls, usually between the ages of 7 and 14, we start to go through puberty. So our breasts start to grow, our body starts to change shape. We start to feel different things. We're interested in different things. Hormonally, we are shifting. But what can happen sometimes, and especially with a lot of the women that the women that I speak to, is that also usually around the time where their experiences with men takes on a different stage. And what do I mean by that? A lot of us have spoken about, men finding out that men kind of find us attractive, or the way that men look at us when we're around those ages makes us feel a certain type of way. And we can feel for the first time that sexual energy coming from those men. And it can be a bit confusing. Even when we're dealing with adult women around those times, most of the time adult women are trying to suppress little girls, and they're also trying to put the fear and shame in them of their bodies. So, the shame of them enjoying their breasts means that they must want, to get a man, or that men are going to be looking at them, so that they should hide themselves. So we inherit this emotion of shame around our bodies, around our energy. And also when we feel this energy from men who now start looking at us in a certain way, we feel vulnerable. And some of us, depending on our natural energy, may take that and think, okay, well, yeah, that means I have power. And a lot of, and other ones may feel like, that makes me feel threatened. That makes me feel uncomfortable. But it's around those ages where we start experiencing, how our sexual energy, how our feminine energy is being received and reciprocated in the world around us. And a lot of us haven't had that support from, wise women who are able to help us to understand that feminine energy, understand the power of that feminine energy and allure and mysticism that we have as sacred feminines, and initiate us into the maidenhood so that we know how to use our power and our sexual energy, so that we know how to hold ourselves sacred. We know the value that we hold. We don't have that kind of rites of passage. We don't have that kind of support. So a lot of us are going through what I call life initiations. So whether you like it or not, life is always going to initiate you into a new level of understanding or into an experience. And for me, the life initiations take place when you don't have the guidance, when you're not told that it's going to come, and life is just throwing things at you to help you grow, so to speak. So for that particular young woman, that became her initiation into her femininity. It became her initiation into her womanhood. And the first thing that she inherited from that initiation was shame. Shame of her physical body, shame of her feminine power, and also shame because of the way in which men would look at her. It would make her feel ashamed, right? And so for her, she then turned that round. So where her feminine energy was coming out now, she was also at the same time living with her mother and seeing her mother being physically abused and seeing her mother in a relationship with a man where it was dysfunctional. So what happened in that woman was, at the time when she should have been learning about how to harness her feminine energy, her masculine energy came forth. She had to now protect herself from those men who were looking at her in certain ways and dealing with her inappropriately. Some of those men would offer her money, and you know the archetype when you're a young girl, and it's like you get those men who are like, oh yeah, go and buy a sweetie for me. Oh, go and buy something for me. And it kind of has an effect on your understanding of money and your understanding of your value. What it does subconsciously is puts in this thing that we can, that men can manipulate us with money, or if we're just nice and sweet, then men will give us money. And that also can develop a certain awareness in you of having to kind of barter and trade your energy, right? And this is a generational wound, and I'm going to talk a bit more about that as well. But it's like the way in which we're interacting, or the way in which men interact with us, develops this kind of discourse, which becomes the foundation for how we grow, right? And a lot of young women, young girls go through periods of sexual abuse and sexual assault at these times as well, as they're coming into that feminine energy. So for her masculine energy came out and was like the protector, not just of her, but also of her mother. She would find herself arguing with men and defending herself against men. She would find that she would become more masculine in her energy because she didn't want men to think that they could manipulate her. She didn't like the way in which men felt they could approach her and also manipulate her by saying, okay, well, I'll do this for you if you do this for me. And a lot of us have gone through that. When I speak about the generational curse of that, there was a time where women and men were balanced, where women were priestesses, where they were healers, they were the teachers, they owned land, they were as abundant, even if not more abundant and abundantly resourced than the males, right? But when we have this shift where things changed and patriarchy rose, women were subjugated. They weren't allowed to own land. They weren't allowed to be in certain positions of power and authority. All of their land, money, and resources was taken away from them. And so a lot of women turned against themselves, right? So they felt like they had to sell their bodies, sell their gifts, sell their talents, sell their energies in order to survive. A lot of women were turned against other women, right? Because we were now turned against each other because we're all in survival mode. So we want to find the best way of making sure that we are protected and provided for in a world that has now demonized us for our womanhood. So that's where you see things like prostitution, and you see things like, women seducing men for money and all of these kind of things. It comes from because for that period of time, we were no longer able to fulfill our own needs and to provide for ourselves. We were now had our hands cut off, and it was only the men who were allowed to be our sources of support and sustenance. So there are some generational and karmic wounds there that still run. One of the things that we also spoke about in that session with my client was the awareness of the prevalence of this in Black communities. Now, I'm not saying for 1 minute that this only happens in Black communities. It definitely doesn't, right? It happens in all communities where males are given a certain element of power and women are diminished, right? However, in the West Indian community, and I can only talk about it from my own experience, I've also spoken to countless of thousands of women, right, who have had the same experience of sexual abuse or inappropriate behavior from uncles and things like that. And also even family members who are fathers of children, like abusing them sexually and things like that. And when we looked into the history of that, when you look at slavery, that was one of the things that was done in the community for Black people in order to destabilize them emotionally and mentally. They would get a father to have sex with his daughter and have a child. You know what I mean? And they would be having, your husband would be having sex with another woman to have a child. There was so much different things that were done to mentally and emotionally destroy our understanding of family and connection. And also, I'm just saying that there are a lot of things that were out of alignment with what we would naturally and normally do in our communities. So some of these things have passed down, or some of these things have made their way down. And so we have this generational trauma of sexual abuse and domestic violence against women not able to feel in control of their bodies, women who walk around and carry shame and guilt in their bodies. And it's time for us to release that. Because this particular sister, who's now in her late 40s, 50s, she's dying for love, right? She's missing companionship. She's missing connection. She really so desperately wants to bring out her feminine, but her feminine is still stuck in child mode. And the masculine part of her that stepped out to protect and support her is now imploding on her. She's angry all the time. She's not able to connect with men because her coping mechanism, her inner masculine that came out to protect her, is now blocking her from being able to experience and come into her feminine power and to come into, her feminine energy. And that is an issue for so many of us women, especially Black women. We have been so used to being the protectors, the providers, being the mother and the father, that in our nervous system alone, there isn't always that capacity for ease and rest. We are always thinking about how we can help and support others. But at the same time, our nervous systems are shot. We are so fed up of being the masculine, being the male, carrying everyone, because this is the time of the divine feminine energy resurgence, which means that we get to go back into our positions of receiving. And so many of us don't know how to receive. We have so many womb ailments in our community. Women who have endometriosis and PCOS and fibroids, and all of these things are connected to that sexual abuse and trauma. All of these things are connected to those generational patterns of not speaking our truths. All of those things are connected to our imbalance that we've been experiencing as humans in our masculine and our feminine energy. And we see that in our males as well. This is not just a woman issue. We see now, when you look at the world, that men have been more emasculated. Even our perception of what a man is changing as we do the healing, as we embark on these healing journeys and embark on these new relationships. We understand that even how we see a man and what we expect of him, that old perspective of, he's meant to be a protector and a provider and he's meant to be strong and resilient. We also want him to be understanding and compassionate. And not even that we want him to be, we recognize that he has to be in order to honor and nurture his feminine energy. So there's this rapid shift around what it means to be male and female. And I don't mean in the transgender sense. I mean in the sense of how we show up in those energies in our life and in our relationships. And so as women, we're also having to reparent, regrow ourselves, re-educate ourselves as to what it means to be feminine in the flesh. We're having to rewalk ourselves through those rites of passage and kind of allow ourselves to be nurtured into growth and development. Because when we are having these relationships and we are triggered, we are regressed right back to those ages in which that trauma is still affecting us. And for a lot of us women, we are needing to kind of do the healing work, deal with those emotions, and so that we can elevate and grow, because we are the ones that lead the next generation, right? So having that chat with that sister was really, really insightful for me, because there were so many things that she was saying that I could relate to. I could relate to, men looking at me in certain ways and me feeling uncomfortable. I used to love my eyes and my breast when I was younger. Like, I would look into my eyes and I just see the magic in them, and I loved it. And when my breasts were growing, I loved the fact that I was coming into my womanhood. But it was also the time where men would look at me really in different ways that made me feel uncomfortable. I had women who would put me down and be like, oh, you think you're too nice. So I didn't get to enjoy it. I didn't even get to come into appreciation of it. I didn't even get to realize how valuable and precious my beautiful body is so that I could hold it sacred. And so when I was making decisions about, for giving away my virginity just because, I'm 16 and I should have given it away now, I didn't get to see how precious and sacred it was, because the women around me didn't let me know how sacred and precious it was. What they did was make me feel as if I was now a threat to their reality and also a threat now to the world around me. And I really, really believe that had I had the right foundation, had I had women around me who understood and were able to be in their feminine energy to share with me about the beauty of my body, about the sacredness of my body, about the sacredness of my cycle and what that means for me, about what the journey of maidenhood is and the value of my virginity and, the ability to be soft and recognize that I have masculine and feminine energy within me, I could only imagine what my life would be like. And so I think about the young women who are coming up. I think about the confusion that we already have in this world. And I think about how can I support them and also support our sisters who may not have had those supportive experiences. How do I support us to get into our feminine energy? How do I support us to bring that balance? And so over the next couple of weeks, those are the things that you're going to hear me speaking about. Those are the services that I'm going to be provided, because it's time for us to come together and do this work, right? There's no need for us to be carrying around shame and guilt and all of these things. A similar incident happened with me maybe a week ago, because I realized that my body was changing. I was giving thanks for the fact that my body was changing. And I had taken a picture of myself with clothes on, but my breasts were out. Let's be clear, like the breasts were out, right? And I took this picture and I accidentally posted it on my WhatsApp status. And I think it was maybe about 4 or 5 people that saw it before I deleted it. But there was one person that kind of reached out and was like trying to put this shame and guilt on me. And it was a man, and he insinuated that I was looking for something or asking for something. And you know what? The past me would have felt ashamed. But this me was like, hang on a minute. That's your perception of what was happening. I'm a divine feminine. Like, I have had 5 children. And for me, my breasts were my most sacred thing. But then at one point, I didn't even have any, right? I felt like I just had nipples and skin. So if I'm in a position right now where I'm celebrating and loving my breasts, I'm not going to stop that just because you decide that you can't control yourself, or you feel like that means that I want sex or whatever. That's down to you, right? And we need to allow ourselves to celebrate ourselves more. We need to allow ourselves to recognize that just because a woman is, enjoying her body. Now, I'm not saying that me personally, I'm going to be posting up more pictures of me with my breasts out on Instagram and WhatsApp. No. Okay. However, what I'm saying is if a woman decides that she wants to do that, or, it is a form of art. We're celebrating the human body. And I am not for one more minute going to let anyone make me feel any shame or guilt for this particular beautiful vehicle that's given birth to 5 beautiful children and nourished life. Are you mad? Right? So this is the time for us as women to start reclaiming our body, but it's also about doing the healing work so that we can rest into our femininity, put down the gauntlet, do the healing work that allows us to open up enough to surrender. Start talking and sharing our stories about our journey into our divine femininehood, the good and the bad. Because the more that we share, the more we alleviate the fears and the illusion, and we can start to connect with each other honestly and openly, and ensure that the next generation don't have to be walking around trying to figure out who they are on the internet. Okay? Yes. So if this resonates with you, please let me know. There's something that you want to add to the conversation, please let me know. Please do. Another thing, is this abuse that we see our mothers going through, and how we then absorb that and want to be the defenders. We want to be the protectors. And then sometimes we find it difficult to come out of that space. We end up growing up being those, people pleasers and those who want to defend and look after everybody, but they're not able to look after ourselves, right? Now is the time for unpacking. And you wonder to yourself, why do we have to do so much healing work at the time? I think I did a video the other day saying that we are ascending into the heart, right? And we talk about this, and we talk about it from this kind of airy fairy new age 5D consciousness bullshit, right? Not realizing that it means to ascend from the lower self, from the existence of the I, the root chakra, which is all about your security, the sacral, which is all about your sexuality and your creativity, and the solar plexus, which is all about your power. You got to consolidate the work in the I of yourself, right? In order to take that bridge The fourth dimension is a bridge, the shadow bridge into your higher self, into the higher octaves of our understanding of love. And in order to do that, we've got to unpack, we've got to understand the choices that we've made. We've got to go back through all of the stuff that we've learned, and then we get to choose how it is that we show up. We get to choose who it is that we are. We get to choose how it is that we love. And in order for us to get into that space of love, let me tell you, every single thing is going to break down. Everything is going to test your perception of love. I'm going through that journey right now on a level of relationships and learning how much I was disconnected from real intimate one-to-one relationships with people, because our world is transactional. Because of the traumas and things that we go through, we're just living outside of ourselves. We're living in with people and around people, but not connected to people because we're afraid. We're afraid of being our true self. We're afraid of having authentic relationships. We're afraid of upsetting each other. Right? But when you start working on those shadows, those fears, those insecurities, those conditionings, those programmings, then you can truly live from love. You can truly lead with love, not through your fears, not through your anxieties, not through your insecurities, but through love. Right? So that's why the healing is so important, because the healing is learning. And as we heal together and as we share together, we learn a new way that then becomes our foundation as a collective. And that is how we create this golden age. It starts with each and every one of us questioning. It starts with each and every one of us communicating and talking and asking questions, right? And being willing to do this healing work. So as I said to you, I'm really being called into this rites of passage work, into this work of helping women to do the work, to come into their feminine power, because the world needs it. And also we need each other, right? To release that shame, to release those guilt, because those are the things that weigh down the heart. I just realized I'm wearing green for the heart chakra. Didn't even know that. But those are the things that weigh down the heart. Shame, guilt, fear, anger, resentment. Those are all of the things that weigh down the heart. And when you look at the weighing of the feather, your heart has to weigh light against the feather. The feather is truth. So your truth is what will lighten your heart. Your truth is what will release you from any burdens. Your truth is what will allow your heart to weigh balance against the feather. Because speaking your truth, speaking your feelings, speaking your emotions, and then mixing that with wisdom and rationale and understanding and compassion, right? That is what's going to bring the healing. That's what's going to dissolve the emotional attachment. And that's what's going to liberate your heart to allow you now to expand into love. One of the things that I'm experiencing is that your heart has to be cracked so wide open before it can gain its wings. And if your heart has not loved, then please know that the universe is going to give you all of the love that you need, and just take it away so that you know what love feels like. And so you know the value of it, right? But everything is getting us back to this understanding of love and ma'at and righteousness and reciprocity. And the golden age is about the rising and establishment of ma'at. So yeah, this was the sharing because it came up in the session and I realized how important these topics are for us to talk about. Please do put your comments in the box below. Let me know your thoughts and your reflections after you watch this video. Let's start having the dialogue. Let's start communicating with each other. And if you would like to start this work and you're interested in working with me, you can always book a clarity call with a link in my bio. And I'm also doing a special on my consultations at the moment, a very, 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 very good special at the moment up until June, I think the 16th. You can book a session at a very, very low cost. So please do that and take advantage of that, and look out for more of the things that are coming up around my Rites of Passage program for women, and also my initiation work for priestesses. But it's time for us to do the work as divine feminines to heal internally, to release these wounds. I promise you, the ailments that you're having in your life, that the physical ailments that you have, they are not just physical, they're mental, emotional, and spiritual, even down to your financial problems. They're all connected to how you utilize and use your energy. How are you valuing yourself, right? It's time for us to start releasing these wounds of the womb. It's time for us to start understanding who we are as divine feminine. It's time for us to start being conscious, because who it is that we are is not who we truly are. Who we think we are is not who we truly are. We are a byproduct of our reality. We are a byproduct of our experiences. And so it's time to do the work so that we can sift the wheat from the chaff and come into our power. Okay? So I hope that this resonated with you. Please let me know if it did. Kim says, and also need that father-daughter relationship. Yes, because that's the balance, right? That's where we learn how to receive love. That's where we learn how to receive discipline. That's where how we know what it is to feel protected and provided for. So just imagine all of those households where there were no fathers present. And now look at the world that we have right now, especially with women who don't even know what it's like to receive love, to know what love is genuinely, to be protected, to be provided for, to be empowered, to feel safe. You know, one of the things I just give thanks for each day, and I'm gifting to myself each day, is just peace in my nervous system. You know, my nervous system is shot. We don't realize how stressed, how much our nervous systems are shocked and stressed and so used to stress, worrying about this, worrying about that, to the point where if we don't have anything to worry about, we wonder what's going on in the world. If we're not in a relationship that makes us feel insecure, we wonder what's going on. We can't even receive goodness when we see it and when we're being given it. So recognize that that's where we are, and be kind to yourself, be gentle to yourself, be inquiring, like self-inquiry. If some of the things that I've said in this video have triggered you or brought up things for you, ask yourself, you know, what was I feeling? Where is that coming from for me? What needs to change? Right? We need to start having these dialogues, because we don't need to be walking around with any more shame, any more guilt around our divine feminine power. And our men don't need to be walking around, you know, feeling like predators, so to speak. And we have to start working together and speak to each other and heal with each other, because I do work with men as well in couples coaching and also one-to-one, and they themselves are fed up with the perception that the world has of them, of what it means to be a man, and it hasn't worked for them either. So guess what? We all need each other in this new cycle, and we are the healing that we're looking for. We are the healing that we're looking for. So that is why this healing journey is important. That is why it's important for us, especially as women, to come together and start sharing and talking with each other and being honest and sharing our truths, and recognizing how the patriarchal era has affected all of us as humans, and why we are the medicine. All right. So I want to send you love of the highest vibrations. Greetings, 12th house Wolfram. So greetings, Supernova Goddess, and Kim. Supernova Goddess, I love your accent. Where are you from? I am from London town in the UK. Yeah, please let me know where you are from. And yeah, just sending you all my love. Blessed love. Wayspeed says, Amenti, you are the medicine. Thank you, my lovely. And so are you. All right. I love you very, very much. And please do look forward to more of my little impromptu videos. I'll be doing a bit more of that. Just sharing some wisdom with you. If there's things that you want to ask, like questions or topics that you think I should be talking about, please do let me know in the comments below. And I'm also planning an event called A Night with Amenti, where I'll be hosting a live event where you can come. We'll do some live coaching. I'll share some wisdom and channelings with you. So if you're interested in being a part of that, it will be a very special, very limited, very sacred event. Then please do let me know, and we will let you know how to get your tickets for that. All right. So I'm looking forward to speaking to you soon. Let me know your comments in the box, and I'm sending you love of the highest vibration. Have a good day. Love you. Bye.